Let me begin with something most spiritual teachers would never say. If you are trying to wake up, you are probably still asleep. Not because you are failing, not because you lack discipline, but because the very act of trying already assumes something is missing. And that assumption, that you are not already whole, is the deepest illusion of all. This video draws from a small portion of a Zen teaching known as the Wake-Up Sermon, traditionally attributed to Zen Patriarch Bodhidharma. And it is not made to comfort you. It does not inspire you. It does not promise progress. It removes the ground you've been standing on. And that is precisely why it works. So before we talk about awakening, we have to remove what we think the way is. Because according to this teaching, the way is not something you enter, it is something you stop adding to. The sermon opens with a sentence so simple it is easy to miss how radical it is. The essence of the way is detachment, not achievement nor purification. Neither it is improvement. It's detachment. Detachment does not mean rejecting life. It means not being captured by appearances. Whether it appears as success or failure, wealth or poverty, beauty or ugliness, it remains nothing more than appearance. We spend our entire lives reacting to appearances, and then we wonder why peace feels temporary. According to this teaching, enlightenment is not something you add. It is what remains when nothing is being clung to. That state is called awareness. And awareness, not robes, not titles, not rituals, is what makes a Buddha. The sutras say, detachment is enlightenment because it negates appearances. Buddhahood means awareness. Mortals whose minds are aware reach the way of enlightenment and are therefore called Buddhas. Those who free themselves from all appearances are called Buddhas. Whoever hears and believes this teaching embarks on the great vehicle and leaves the three realms. The three realms are greed, anger, and delusion. It says, to leave the three realms means to go from greed, anger, and delusion back to morality, meditation, and wisdom. Greed, anger, and delusion have no nature of their own. They depend on mortals. And anyone capable of reflection is bound to see that the nature of greed, anger, and delusion is the Buddha nature. Most spiritual systems teach you to eliminate these. This teaching says something else entirely. It says they have no nature of their own. They exist only because the mind believes in them. When belief dissolves, they dissolve. We are taught to avoid greed, anger, and delusion. They are called poisons, things to suppress, fix, or eliminate. So we turn against our own experience. We resist. We judge. We try to become better than what is here. But here is what almost no one sees. The more you fight them, the stronger they become. Because the moment you try to destroy greed or anger, you assume they are real, solid, and dangerous. And that belief feeds them. That is why the teaching says, if you try to destroy the poisons, you strengthen them. Greed, anger, delusion arise, shift, and disappear, like waves on water. Seen clearly, their true nature is revealed: emptiness. This is why the teaching makes its most radical claim. The nature of greed, anger, and delusion is Buddha nature itself. There is no awakening outside confusion, no purity beyond impurity. You do not escape the poisons by rising above them. You are free only by seeing through them. And when they are truly seen, they vanish on their own. The sutras say, Buddhas have only become Buddhas while living with the three poisons and nourishing themselves on the pure Dharma. Here, the teaching breaks its own limits, entering what Buddhism calls the Great Vehicle. The great vehicle is the greatest of all vehicles. It's the conveyance of bodhisattvas, who use everything without using anything, and who travel all day without traveling. Such is the vehicle of Buddhas. The sutras say, no vehicle is the vehicle of Buddhas. In other words, they act fully without believing they are moving toward a goal. No striving at all. Why? Because the moment you believe you are on your way somewhere, you have already stepped away from reality. That is why the sutras say, no vehicle is the vehicle of Buddhas. Awakening does not carry you forward. It reveals that you never left. At this point, the mind still wants instructions. If there is nowhere to go, then what are we supposed to do? This is where Zen gives its most misunderstood answer. Not thinking about anything is Zen. This does not mean forcing silence. It does not mean suppressing thought. It means not following thought. Thoughts arise naturally. They dissolve naturally. But the moment we follow our thoughts, believing we must react to every one that arises, we are already caught in an endless loop. Suffering begins when the mind grabs them and turns them into identity. Zen is the absence of interference. When this is understood, walking is Zen, sitting is Zen, breathing is Zen. Not because you do something special, but because you stop doing something unnecessary. To see that the mind is empty is to see the Buddha. Freeing oneself from words is liberation. Remaining unblemished by the dust of sensation is guarding the Dharma. Not later, now. The sermon speaks of two shores. This shore, suffering, confusion, becoming. The other shore, freedom, nirvana, awakening. However, this only happens when delusion still covers our true nature. When we're deluded, there's a world to escape. When we're aware, there's nothing to escape. If enlightenment feels distant, it is because the mind has created distance. When awakening happens, the idea of shores dissolves entirely. There is no escape, because there was no prison. Once there is no prison, the question of opposites no longer holds. And this is where the teaching removes the final division. Delusion is called mortality. Awareness is called Buddhahood. Difference only exists when the mind divides experience. When delusion is seen clearly, they are all awareness. When awareness is misunderstood, it looks like delusion. Your perspectives shift. Awareness does not. Then the teaching speaks of an impartial Dharma, a truth so complete that mortals cannot penetrate it and sages cannot practice it. Why? Because it removes all reference points. To be impartial means to look on suffering as no different from nirvana, because the nature of both is emptiness. Life and death are not opposites. Motion and stillness are not opposites. Suffering and nirvana are not opposites. They share the same nature, emptiness. Arhats try to escape suffering and become trapped in nirvana. Bodhisattvas see suffering as empty and remain free. Nirvana is not a place. It is not an experience. It is not bliss. Nirvana is an empty mind. When the mind stops moving, nirvana is present. Where delusion does not arise, Buddhas rest in nirvana. Where affliction does not arise, bodhisattvas enter enlightenment. Nothing is added, nothing is taken away. The sermon explains the mechanics of illusion. When a thought begins, you enter the three realms. When a thought ends, you leave them. Reality does not imprison you. Thought does. Even rocks and sticks, it says, exist or do not exist depending on the mind. This is not poetry. It is direct observation. Once this is seen, even the idea of mind itself becomes unstable. And this is where the middle way appears, not as a philosophy, but as a necessity. Whoever knows that the mind is a fiction and devoid of anything real knows that his own mind neither exists nor doesn't exist. Mortals keep creating the mind, claiming it exists, and arhats keep negating the mind, claiming it doesn't exist. But bodhisattvas and Buddhas neither create nor negate the mind. This is what's meant by the mind that neither exists nor doesn't exist. The mind that neither exists nor doesn't exist is called the middle way. True vision is not seeing objects, it is seeing without grasping. True understanding is not accumulating insight, it is understanding without holding. When understanding disappears, true understanding appears. When seeing disappears, true vision remains. What most people see are projections. What Zen reveals is what remains when projection ends. The world arises where mind and perception meet. When the mind stirs, the world appears. When the mind is still, the world dissolves. When both are transparent, true vision arises. The sermon ends with a final reversal. When the ordinary mind appears, Buddhahood disappears. When the ordinary mind falls away, Buddhahood appears. Nothing depends on anything. The mind depends on nothing. Where nothing is dependent upon, awakening is already here. Nothing more needs to be added, which is why the teaching does not end with an answer, but with silence. This teaching does not give you something to believe, it removes what you believed you needed. If this unsettled you, that is the point. This was never meant to comfort you, it was meant to wake you up, so you could see the miraculously bright awareness within, long obscured by clouds of delusion. After this video, sit quietly for a few minutes. Notice present awareness. Nothing else is needed. The video has done its work. Until the next video.